are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Como están, bitches? This is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That's Evo. We are here. It is a Saturday, and we have got some NFL prospects to go over. We are to that point of the year in the season. It's over, man. But the NFL never fucking sleeps. I know that. Evo, I know you know that. You've been grinding out some research on prospects, but today we're going to hit D-line and some edge rushers. But before we dive into that, my man, how you doing? Last episode, not our best. My fault. Everybody watched. I apologize. The video should be much better. The quality should be much better. I had to yell at some people about my internet, but I'm ready. I'm pumped. Evo, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Enjoying my little short weekend here, considering taking Monday off to make it another nice long weekend just because I feel like I deserve it. Because it was a real busy week last week. I had to talk to stupid important people, like a 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star general. And so that was, everyone was just stressed around work because of that. And I don't really give a shit about those people, because at the end of the day, guess what? When they were babies, they pooped their pants, and some of these guys are old enough that they're probably still pooping their pants. I just don't really care, but having to put on the whole monkey suit and the tie and all that stuff,
that is the tough part.
Yeah, that kind of sucks, but it was still cool in some ways. And now I'm getting to relax on the weekend, and then I've got kind of the honey-do list where I'm building a garden and some planter boxes out in the backyard. So that's what's on the docket for the rest of the weekend, other than spreading democracy online in a new video game that I've been getting into, which is Helldivers 2. It's a lot of fun for
Helldivers 2
that wants to play that. Yeah, it's
okay.
If you like the movie Starship Troopers and kind of even more of a satirical take on that, it's fun. But yeah, man, how about you? How's things going out in the Ohio neck of the woods?
I'm doing good, man. I mean, this semester is fucking kicking my ass. School has been hard as fuck recently, but it's my own fault. So I'm taking 2 classes in person. Those classes are pretty easy. That's, my production class. So we're making movies. By the way, there will be a new short film that is going to be released under our company that we are building. So I'm pumped for that. But I have like 4 movie shoots I got to do. Doing editing of films, but I like that stuff. It's easy. It's fun. I'm also taking some online classes for things that I have to take. One of them being physics. And let me tell you, taking physics as an online class was really fucking stupid. Because I'm basically trying to teach myself how to do physics based on a PowerPoint in a book. And I'm just going to be honest. I'm not that fucking smart. I'm not smart enough to teach myself physics based on a book and a PowerPoint. So that class has been kicking my dick. And then my sports marketing class is also very, very tough, but that is a senior level class. There's also graduate students in that class, so that was to be expected. However, that's like the last class I need to finish up my minor. But when this semester's over, I'm going to be very excited. Take a nice break before I start doing summer classes. But yeah, this semester can fuck off. Outside of that, things are going great. Kids are doing good. G had his wrestling tournament last week, won his first match, and then struggled from there. But whenever you make it to the championships for your league, competition is expected to be tougher. So just got more work to do, man. But he's enjoying it. He likes it. Everybody in the house is still absolutely fucking sick. I still sound a little hoarse. Hopefully there will not be any coughing fits, and I won't need to take off and turn off my mic so you guys can't hear me dying in the background this time.
Perfect. Very nice. Well, in the world of the NFL, we are currently into that schedule that we kind of recapped last time. We're in that franchise tag deadline. As of right now, I don't know that anyone has officially been tagged, but players like T. Higgins have been notified that
conversations have been had.
Things like that. You're also seeing some teams working on getting closer to their cap number or being cap compliant for the beginning of the league year. You have guys like Xavier Howard, cornerback for the Dolphins, being told he's going to be released. A whole bunch of other players, which, Xavier Howard's a guy that the Vikings in the past have been rumored to be willing to trade for, and now hey,
Brian Flores connection.
there. Yeah, I love the connection there. We need a cornerback. I think that we could probably get him in here. So that's a little hot take for the day. Is I think Xavier Howard might be making his way down there.
All right. So while we're on this kind of topic of potential cap casualties, we're going to see a lot of guys who are going to be cap casualties. But just because you carry a high cap number does not automatically make you a candidate as a cap casualty. I'm tired of this narrative, and it's been happening a shitload out here in Cleveland. So originally the conversation was that Nick Chubb was potentially going to be a cap casualty, carrying a $12 million contract. They could cut him, cut bait. That's not happening. Mary Kay Cabot has published her article saying that is not fucking happening, even though there was plenty of speculation. And then we get speculation from other, especially national news sources, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like David Njoku as a possible cap casualty. That's absolutely not ever fucking happening.
No.
You don't cap casualty guys who are massively productive. If you don't like their cap number, what you do is you re-sign them and then you spread that fucking money out. That's how that works. I don't know why we're having the conversation that guys like Njoku could possibly be a cap casualty when he was a top 5 tight end in the NFL this year. Like, was an absolute stud for this team. So this whole narrative that anybody who has a potential has a high salary cap hit is a potential cap casualty, not if they're ultra productive. That is not a thing when they're ultra productive.
Yeah, at most for those sorts of players, you are looking at some sort of fiddle fucking with the contract.
Yeah. Restructure,
resign,
convert to signing bonus.
All that sort of stuff can be done. Like void years typically don't even require like player approval because it doesn't actually change the money. If anything, they get the money sooner. It just pushes off the financial hit against the cap into future years and things like that. So you have the best example of the finagling happening with the New Orleans Saints. It feels like they've been in cap purgatory for like 5 years. And again, they are sitting here with the worst cap in the league, but they always somehow get cap compliant because they are just kicking the can further and further down the line. Now it's like a snowball rolling down a mountain. By some point, it's going to be a fucking boulder and it's going to cause a problem. And they're going to hit that reset button there and have to completely implode the whole thing and start over. And
the Saints are almost there, but they're not quite there yet.
Right. And that's they're still working on this kick the can down the road scenario because they're converting a whole bunch of Derek Carr's salary, restructuring it, saving like 28 or 23 million against the cap this year just on his contract alone. It just means that they're going to be paying Derek Carr when he's not even on the team anymore, more than likely, which is a thing that a lot of teams do. You just don't see anyone do it as much or as often as the Saints do. So,
and we're seeing this with other players like a Mike Evans, his contract voided. That money, that dead cap is going to go $13 million against the Bucks. But Mike's still getting that fucking money, regardless. Even if he's not on the Bucks, he's still getting that money.
Yeah.
So
for the Vikings, Kirk Cousins is getting paid $28 million this year, I believe.
Regardless of if he's on the team or not.
Yeah. Yep. So that's some of the proponents of re-signing a player like that are for the fact that hey, then at least you have the player on. You can basically structure the deal where hey, this first year the player's getting no money. If the player signs, we'll say Kirk Cousins 3-year, $100 million deal. This year, the Vikings probably wouldn't pay him, but like $5 million, and then that leaves $95 million to be figured out over the next 2 years, and they would probably add void years and stuff like that onto the end of it to make it spread out a little bit more evenly. But that's the way that teams are able to kind of finagle that cap situation. So if there's a will,
same thing as deferred money in the MLB. The same thing as deferred money in the MLB. That's how you get Bobby Bonilla Day. That's how we're eventually going to get Shohei Ohtani Day. But it's very similar. It's just slightly different in the NFL because there is the salary cap. So there are a few more constraints there.
Yeah, it's just if there's a will, there's a way for a team to go out and get a player. It can be tough at some points, especially once you're in season and things like that. Contracts are relatively set, and it's tough to move things around. But if there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely. Well, and one of those things that's going to help all of these teams kind of get cap compliant is salary cap has just been released, and goddamn, it went up a lot. $30.6 million it goes up. Cap is now $255.4 million. That does not include rollover money that people may have as well, which I know that my Browns have some rollover money. Lots of teams have rollover money. So you're looking at teams that are going to have cap hits of probably over 300,000, and it will be cap compliant. But that rollover money is going to be huge. So this big increase, we expected an increase. Did you expect this high? And what are these fucking contracts going to look like with these players knowing that there's a shitload of money out there and there's not a lot of quarterbacks that are coming due who need deals?
Yeah, so that's the thing is it doesn't surprise me every year when it goes up like this, because last year it was around like 24 million that the cap went up. Everything's getting more expensive. So that means more revenue for these teams in the NFL and everything, which allows these cap spaces to be higher. Players get paid more and more every single year. So the cap keeps on raising, and it's starting to become a raise at an exponential rate, which is really what we're seeing. So going up by this, 30 something odd million, it wasn't super surprising to me. It was higher than most people were projecting still. They're still projecting in the 20s, kind of the high 20s, but on one side of the coin, it's like, cool, now my team has a lot more money to sign guys. On the other hand, if you are a team that has those key pivotal players who demand big contracts, defensive ends, wide receivers, quarterbacks, guys like that require large cap number hits on their contract, this is not it always sucks when the new cap number comes out and it's inflated, because that means that player knows, okay, well, this guy, I wanted 30 million, but they actually have 35 million more than they thought they would. So I can squeeze a little bit more out of them now and get a higher contract, reset the market. It's why players and agents are smart. They typically won't re-sign unless they're a lower end free agent until after this, cap number is released. But if it's smart for teams to do those in season or late season, end of season, re-signings, restructures, if they can talk the player into it, because they're able to get at that player before the market is open for them to be signed by other people and before this number is out. You typically don't see it again, like I said, unless it's lower end, depth players and stuff who are just happy to have a contract in the NFL. But for teams, again, like my Vikings, we are going to reset the bank for Justin Jefferson to re-sign him. And every year that we haven't re-signed him, I'm getting more and more disappointed, because I know, like, okay, another player is going to sign, and another player is going to sign, and another player is going to sign. We saw it last year with TJ Hawkinson. Cole Kmet, who I think is an okay tight end, but not anything special, kind of reset that quarterback market at tight end, or excuse the quarterback, the cap market at tight end. And then we go and re-sign Hawkinson, and it's got to be a higher number than that, because Hawkinson's a better player.
Better player.
If the Vikings, so in my situation, if the Vikings keep sitting on their hands and waiting longer and longer to re-sign Jefferson, that's when we start to look at issues of Mike Evans will go out there and get some silly deal, and he's older and arguably not as good. And now
he's going to
pushes the number even higher and higher. CeeDee Lamb. I want the Vikings to sign Jefferson before CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb has already kind of said he wants to reset the market. So it's the same thing with quarterbacks.
T. Higgins, who is going to get the franchise tag, but they're going to try to re-sign him now, knowing how much cap space they got.
Yeah.
The franchise tag is just in place to continue negotiations. Yeah. I don't see T. Higgins playing on that. So I agree, but I don't know that Justin Jefferson is going to sign. Why wouldn't you wait? Wait until T. Higgins fucking gets a long-term deal. Wait until CeeDee Lamb gets his extension, because then Justin Jefferson can actually reset the market. Now, for your Vikings, that's not a good thing. You would have liked to see this deal get done last year when he became eligible for it, or during the season.
Apparently, like, ink was almost to paper last year within 48 hours of the first game of the season, and it wasn't a money thing. It was a structure that they couldn't completely agree on structure. And we've kind of talked about that, the 3-year mark. The Vikings probably want 5 years. He wants 3 years, so on and so forth. And then the amount of guarantees, things like that. There's been a lot of talk and speculation about, hey, if the deal doesn't get done, Jefferson could be traded this offseason. I don't see that happening. Jefferson is the star player on the Vikings team right now. especially now that Kirk is probably going to be gone. The team isn't doing a hard reset like that. Do we have a good if Jefferson was gone, do we have a good situation on offense? Sure, it's okay, but it's not as good as if Jefferson is there. Like we saw, the team was still able to be productive without him for long stretches through this year. But
he's the best wide receiver in football. Anytime he's on the field, your team is better. Plain and simple.
Yeah. To me, the packaging of him doesn't make sense for both sides of the trade partners, the Vikings and whoever they would trade to, because if you are getting Jefferson, you have to give up probably multiple first round picks. The only scenario where that's not really happening is if the Vikings were to use him as a trade piece to move up into those first 3 picks in the draft.
Yeah.
And then I still feel like the Vikings deserve getting something more in return, but that's not going to happen because those picks are valued as 3 first round picks anyways. So then the Vikings feel like they're getting cheated. They're having to give up Jefferson and picks to move up into the top 3 potentially. And now you're down the best wide receiver in the NFL and getting a rookie quarterback who may or may not work out.
I have a question that this conversation kind of got me into the line of thinking about potential trade, because you guys need a quarterback. Mm-hmm. Probably not re-signing Kirk. You could, but is Justin Jefferson and first round swap of first round picks to go up to number 1? Is that worth it?
I don't think it'll happen. Quessie's shown that he's willing to trade within the division, but I don't think that'll happen. And I think the Bears are probably absolutely locked on Caleb Williams at this point. Justin Fields now has unfollowed Bears social media. He's probably already gotten word like, hey, we are moving on from you. It is just, we don't know where or what's going to happen or anything like that. So keep your nose clean, keep yourself quiet. So that way a team will want to go out and get you type thing, and you can move into a good situation. But yeah, I don't expect that to happen. But this is the problem as well, is you trade Justin Jefferson and you have to, there's that trade of draft capital, which is already a tough pill to swallow. Now, whatever team gets him, all of a sudden has to pay him an exorbitant contract as well.
Well, so not the only Bears should have the fucking cap space to pay him.
They should. The teams in the best position to do that are, the Washington Commanders, with how much cap room they have and things like that. I don't see it happening. I think that at the end of the day, the Vikings will probably bend the knee to what his requests are to an extent. It's just, you're not going to see a fully guaranteed deal. There's reports about, Vikings aren't willing to fully guarantee after the first year, and people are taking that as they're not, like Jefferson's asking for a 100% guaranteed contract, and that's not the case. It's just they're not going to give 3 years full guaranteed. They'll probably give 1 to 2 years full guaranteed, and then start to spread things out from there. That's pretty normal.
He's learning from his boy, fucking Kirk O'Chains, man. Get that guaranteed money. Honestly, a little bit less in total money for more guarantees. That's the way you want to be. Like, you want guaranteed money. As much as I don't like our quarterback situation, what's happening out here, Deshaun is fucking brilliant for getting all of that money fully guaranteed. Like, that is a baller player move. So for that, I respect it, because get your bag.
Well, for some of these players, they just have the teams bent over their knee. Like, if the player says they want a fully guaranteed, 3-year fully guaranteed contract, and they don't want to take less money, they want them. Jefferson wants $36 million a year, 3 years fully guaranteed. Someone will give it to him.
Oh, 100%.
So
I'll fucking give it to him.
Right. So that's the thing, is that him and other players are holding the teams hostage to an extent. So I personally am not worried about that deal happening. I think that it will happen, before the start of the new league, or not starting the new league year, but before the season starts, because obviously you won't show up to camp without it. But
right.
There's those rumors out there. It's not a impossible situation where he could get traded, but I don't expect that to happen.
Yeah, I don't think that's in the cards at all either.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, salary cap moving up, good for teams who need to re-sign big time playmakers like a Justin Jefferson. Also good for teams who are in bad cap spots like the Saints. My Browns, to an extent, we're actually not in that bad of a cap spot, just because anybody who has been following the team already kind of knew that regardless of what this number was going to be, there were guys that are getting restructured again. Deshaun's still going to need the restructure, because this team is going to add. They believe that we are in the window to try to compete to win a Super Bowl. We had 4 starting quarterbacks this year and a dominant defense. We were able to make the playoffs. So the thought process being, if Deshaun can come back and play competent quarterback play at an average level, and we can get a similar performance from our defense, this team can go very far. They can go crazy deep in the playoffs, may even be able to win it all. Obviously, you'll have to get through the goddamn Chiefs, and nobody's really proven that they can do that and knock Pat Mahomes off. He couldn't go on the road. Well, he did go on the road this year and did just fine. So it's going to be tough, but that's a thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. But all right, well, with salary cap, we have a little bit of money news around the NCAA and NIL deals. You want to jump into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is interesting. We talked about NIL in the past. NIL, I think, is a great thing. I believe players should get paid based off of their name, image, and likeness. You should own yourself. Nobody else should own your property in who you are and the way you present yourself. But NIL has grown to this giant monstrosity that I don't believe it was ever intended to be. You get coaches like Nick Saban coming out and saying, we do not have college athletics anymore. This is not college football. This is something else. This is some sort of amalgamation of the pros and college. These are not student athletes because they can be paid. Well, there was some small rules that were in place that said colleges could not directly link a recruit or anybody else to a collective or any kind of group NIL to get that player to come to the school. Well, a federal judge in Tennessee has ruled that is unconstitutional and it violates antitrust laws. So now colleges with these big time collectives and NIL groups can actually go out and say, we will pay you to go to this school. That is no longer illegal, or at least there's a stay on that being illegal. The NCAA cannot enforce any punishment because of this. So now we are truly in the Wild West. This is basically free agency in college football. We always talked about, hopefully it never gets to the point where it just completely destroys parity. But to me, it looks like we're heading in that direction. Where are you at on this, man?
Yeah, NIL has definitely grown into that beast that I'm not particularly a fan of. I've always thought that, the situations with like Reggie Bush signing autographs and stuff like that, that's bullshit. I can put my signature wherever I want. If someone wants to pay me for that, I should be allowed to get that. You have college golfers who were kicked out of the NCAA because they made golf YouTube channels and monetized it. That's bullshit. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's just the NCAA being greedy. Now we have had the pendulum swing completely the opposite direction, where it's not like, hey, I am allowed to earn money based off of my name, image, likeness. Now I'm getting directly paid just to play for a specific school. And that to me doesn't seem super fair, because you do have a lot of those schools that are not in big markets that don't have booster clubs that are the same, as other schools. And they're just not going to be able to compete with the top recruits. And heaven forbid that you do have some good recruiting and you bring in some no-name guys that people weren't fully tracking, didn't have on their radar. You develop them in a year or two, and now they're, one of the top players at the position in the league. Well, that player is just going to enter the transfer portal because there's going to be money available for him. And from the player's perspective, I cannot fault them whatsoever for doing that. But it just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem like college football. That was one of the things with college football was it wasn't the NFL in that respect, as far as like paying players to go play at certain places. Obviously this thing happened behind the scenes and people got caught for it every now and then. It was a little bit more of a dangerous game, but I wish that there was something where it wasn't these millions of $1 million deals. Okay, if Kool-Aid McKinstry wants to go be a representative for an air conditioning company, because he did, I get that, whatever. And they're probably paying him a lot of money to do that. And he's probably getting that opportunity because of the school and location and stuff that he's going to. But having it be directly being these booster organizations that are direct tied to school, and the school is able to say,
come
hey,
to Bama and we'll pay you. We'll get you an NIL deal.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Now, I get the whole antitrust stuff, blah, 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 all that sort of shit. It's just, I feel like there's got to be some sort of a cap or some sort of a swing back to the norm to this, because otherwise over the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of unintended and negative results, especially when it filters to the NFL. And I suppose that's one thing that I have my own blinders on too, is that my scope is definitely future forward NFL prospects and stuff like that. But I have to look more, I guess, from that immediate player perspective of being in college football. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring you. You don't know if that means the NFL or not. So if I have a 2 to 3 year college career of playing football where I'm good and I can make $5 million doing that, but I'm never going to be able to play in the NFL and I'm just going to have to go to a normal job. Yeah, I'm going to take it. I'm going to do whatever I can to get that money. And I get that. So that's the shit that kind of sucks, is that from the player perspective, I get it.
It's your bag, right? But at the same time, you're completely stripping away the fabric of what college football was.
Yeah.
And that's tough to watch. It's something that we talked about on this show. Like, there's a chance that college football is going to just fundamentally change. I said this in a couple of my classes as well. Like, NIL is great, but there's like, I'm sorry, I was a little bit more doom and gloom. Like, it's cool. I love the players are getting fucking paid, especially to just be themselves. They should own themselves, but you cannot make these kids employees. And when you are just saying, hey, you go to this school, we'll pay you, that's essentially what they're becoming. Because college scholarships are on a 1-year basis. You have to get that scholarship renewed to you every fucking year. This is the whole Baker Mayfield story. Was a walk-on, yes, but had a scholarship, was not going to get another scholarship, had to go walk on at Oklahoma. So that shit is real. You have to earn that scholarship every year. If you're not performing well, okay, well, they don't give you a scholarship. Then there goes the NIL money. Like, there's so many extra things that are in place here. That we're playing a very, very dangerous game. I understand the judge's ruling. Like, these kids, they are the product. They're the whole fucking product. Without them, college football ceases to exist anyways. But to give it to where you can just pay somebody to go to your school, that is wrong. Like, you're completely destroying the parity of college football. There will be a group of 5, and there will be Power 5, Power 4, whatever the fuck it is now, Power 4. And there won't be any room. Like, it'll be this group in that group. It's not AFC, NFC. It's the NFL and then fucking developmental leagues where these kids who are in group of 5 schools are trying their damnedest to show up and show out so they can transfer into the transfer portal that's gotten out of control and maybe go make some NIL money at one of these bigger schools. That is not what college football is designed to be. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But I'm still in favor of players owning their name, image, and likeness, being able to be paid for being you. But it's got to be once you get there. Like, this is like before we had the rookie wage scale, right? Mm-hmm. Where Sam Bradford comes into the league and it's like, I am demanding $160 million. And he's never played a fucking snap.
Yeah.
Like, this is the same process that's happening with NIL now. And that it's bad business. That's why the NFL fucking changed it.
Yeah, it's definitely rough. And again, like I said, I've had the blinders more so on the NFL. Looking at it from other perspectives, I get some of it. But again, it does feel like it's eroding the game, ruining the college football to an extent. But then again, going back to the focus on the NFL, we're seeing direct correlation already, I believe, to prospects. Now, COVID years pushed players to be a lot older and things like that and stay in school longer. Mm-hmm. But you are going to see the same effects happening, maybe to even a greater extent, with the really good players in college football at particular position groups. Quarterback, you're going to have to talk about a lot of NIL money for a quarterback to really truly stay in college. But because the NFL is all about getting quarterbacks young, early, being able to develop them, and you can make 12 to 15 million as a backup in the league. You're not getting paid that in NIL money as of right now. So it makes sense for that player to jump to the league. On the flip side, running backs, after your first contract, it is a diminishing, like hardcore diminishing value. If you are not drafted in the first round, your contract is not great, and you're beholden to it for like 4 years. So for these guys to be able to say, hey, if I stay in college,
stay in college for 4 years, get as much NIL as you can, get your one contract in the NFL, and then hope maybe you can get a short 1-2 year deal after that.
Absolutely.
That's what the life of a running back now.
It makes sense for them to stay. I mean, we saw Blake Corum stayed last year, because of Michigan and going back with Harbaugh and all that stuff, but he got paid a bunch of NIL too, and it makes sense for a guy like that to stay. So there are certain position groups for sure where you are going to see this directly affecting the crop of players coming in the NFL, where they're going to be older, have more miles on them, and might not last as long. And it's the running back position right now is the one that is truly being devalued even more for NFL players, which is going to be really interesting to see. Are we going to start to see a dearth of competent running games, or a drastic switch to platoon systems from having lead backs, which we've already seen a bunch of teams switch over to that, but it might just become the norm. Like, you aren't going to have, in my opinion, Saquon Barkley's coming out when they're 21, 22 years old anymore into the league. You're just not going to see it. You're going to have those guys staying in college, making their money, and then they'll come out when they're 24, 25, and some of their best years are already behind them, because running back 26, 27 is usually kind of that cliff area where they start to fall off. So it's going to make investing in a running back higher in the draft a lot more difficult to do.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So speaking of running backs and kind of what's going on with NIL, we had this comment come in. Johnny Manziel beating the drum to get Reggie his trophy back, his Heisman back on Club Shay Shay. Did you watch any of this interview?
I didn't watch the interview. I saw the articles and stuff about it though.
So I watched the interview. I mean, I love Club Shay Shay. Manziel, I'm not a huge fan of, but there were aspects of this that I really appreciate. Like, Johnny knows that Johnny was fucked up, and he's able to admit that, but he's not able to take full responsibility for some of the things that he did. Like in the interview, he's like, no, man, I was a fucking piece of shit. I feel bad for wasting years of Joe Thomas's career. There were guys that I hurt what they were trying to do because Johnny didn't care. Johnny wasn't prepared. Johnny didn't watch film. Johnny wanted to fucking get paid and get laid. That's what Johnny's MO was. So his ability to admit that is great. But at the same time, he goes and takes shots at guys like Brian Hoyer, who says Brian Hoyer is a fucking dickhead and didn't do him any favors in the quarterback room. Well, I mean, if Johnny Manziel's sitting across from you and you can tell that he hasn't watched any fucking film and he's not prepared, you as the starter, are you going to invest a lot of time in somebody that you can tell doesn't fucking care? I'm not. I mean, I'm going to put in the amount of effort that you're willing to put in. I'm not going to work harder for your goals than you're going to fucking work for them.
You might big brother them a little bit, but when they're not going to be receptive to it, you're not my family at the end of the day. This is my career. I have to start focusing on my career more than trying to fix you. Like, yeah, I don't get it.
I don't either. But I do believe that Johnny brings up good points that Reggie Bush should absolutely have his Heisman back. Yeah. He earned the Heisman. He was one of the best college football players in history. I don't think there's really any debate that he was one of the best college football players in history. That fucking national championship game, 2005, Texas versus USC, is the greatest game that's ever been played in college football. Watching Vince Young go against Reggie Bush was amazing.
That was a fantastic game. Yeah.
It was so good. And Reggie's accomplishments athletically are not increased by him making money, which is the problem that I have with this. He was still the same fucking player, whether he had the money or not. Mm-hmm. He was just getting paid when he shouldn't have been, even though now with federal rulings, you can literally just fucking hand a guy a bag of money and say, hey, by the way, you're going to USC. And that's 100% legal. Like, Johnny is right. Reggie should get his trophy back because it is 100% legal to do exactly what Reggie Bush did now. Does that...
And there isn't a good argument in my mind not to retroactively give that back to him, because it's not like a slippery slope where it's like, oh, well, if we let this one thing happen, now we have to start looking at all these other things. Like, no, not the case. Like, this is just, we weren't with the times and allowing players to get what they were worth and have rights to their own names. And so, like, we, followed the rules as they were, took the trophy away, but now let's have a retrospective look and fix this situation because was an electric college football player, absolutely deserving of the Heisman at the time, and it almost tarnishes us now to not be giving it to him. Like, I don't think there's a good argument not to give it back to him.
I agree. Now, if you go back and you watch this a little bit, Johnny makes the comment that, from his understanding, the only way that the Heisman will give his trophy back would be if the NCAA were to reinstate the records and the stats from the seasons in which Reggie Bush was being paid. So now we're dependent on the NCAA to do the right thing and say, okay, listen, we screwed up. You guys should have been getting paid probably the whole fucking time. And that's just never going to happen, which sucks because the NCAA is not ever in the business of admitting their mistakes.
Yeah. I wonder too, if there's some sort of potential, if that would maybe open them up to some sort of litigation from other players being like, well, I didn't take money, so I should have been taking money, and now you owe me that money that I could have gotten, type thing or something like that.
Yeah, this whole thing's a slippery slope, and then these things that happen with NIL make it even worse because now motherfuckers can just straight up be paid.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's dangerous, slippery slope. Reggie deserves it. Johnny, the interview was good. Was a douche. Can still kind of be one, but also has drastically matured from the young man that he was when he showed up in Cleveland.
I think he's a more likable douche now.
Yeah. Agreed. He's like the asshole, but he's like your asshole.
A little bit more entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, you ready to roll into some draft prospects, looking at some of these guys coming up here at the Scouting Combine, which starts Tuesday, I believe. The 27th.
Yeah, Tuesday is the day. So our intent, we're going to do D-line, DNs, edge guys today. We'll probably round out the rest of the defense next week, and then we'll slide over into the offensive side of the ball. And we were talking about this before the show. For me, like the combine is really way more of an offensive showcase than it is a defensive showcase. So that's why I wanted to wait and let the combine play out a little bit to see who are the crazy risers, who doesn't hit the numbers that everybody wants to see, because that's where it is. It's the receivers, the running backs, the quarterbacks. How do they throw? How do they run? How do they move? Like the linebackers, we don't see a ton of on-field drills. Same thing with D-line, DNs, corners, a little bit, just their mobility, but it's an offensive showcase. So that's why we're pushing all the offense off, and we're going to start with defensive line today. But brother, I am ready for sure.
All righty. Well, I'm going to let you kick off into it. Do you want to start a little bit more with the hand in the dirt down D lineman type of guy?
Yeah, I'm totally good with starting with D-line because I got a couple of dudes here that I like. Maybe some of them I like a little bit more, but we'll kind of, as I go through, we'll get into it. First guy I'm going to talk about, though, D-line, Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Okay, so went through, did a little write-up. This dude is crazy fucking strong. He is so goddamn strong. He will sit a guard in the quarterback's lap, and he just jogs back like that is expected. Very good off the ball, good in the run game, holds his ground against double teams, doesn't necessarily win any of that, as like a guy I'm going to talk about later on, but has the ability to withstand a double team. Started out playing smaller competition at a Western Michigan. But then goes to Florida State, still uber productive. So he's done it at a smaller school. He's done it at a bigger school. Really good production, basically all the way throughout. Now, is this a guy that I expect to be on the field for all three downs? Probably not, at least not right away. A solid rotational piece, though. Really nice, three technique that I think can be a decent penetrator, will provide a little bit of pass rush, but it's still very good in the run game. So that's one dude that I like. I don't know if he's going to rise high enough to be considered, early second round. I think probably mid second round is where I'd have this guy, but had a really good Senior Bowl.
Yeah, Fisk is about like my fourth rated interior defensive lineman right around that area. I really like him. Like you said, Western Michigan was a standout there, transferred to Florida State, and you expect to see a little bit of drop off because of competition, and you just didn't really see it. He was the same player there. He had a really good showing out at the Senior Bowl too. 297, 6'5". He is that good prototypical type of 3-tech that can have some flexibility where if you are playing a 3-4 down front, he is a guy that can play one of those 3-4 defensive ends where, you know, you're still kind of a 4-tech, something like that.
Get him in a
guy
4
that I really
high
like,
would
he's
be good. You could probably get him all the way out to a 5. 5 is a stretch for him, though. I think a little bit.
Those would be a little bit more heavy lineman downs, like goal line type stuff, possibly. But he is definitely your meat and potatoes type of interior lineman. A guy that I do think can plug and play, and honestly, I think he could be a 3-down lineman. Obviously, not like right off the rip, but that's just because you don't know with rookies if they're going to take an NFL game right away or not. I mean, the jump in competition for him from Western Michigan to Florida State wasn't a problem. What's to say that a training camp and playing, some preseason in the NFL that he's not by the end of next year going to be able to be a 3-down lineman for a squad out there. So definitely a guy that I see. I like him as a 4-3-3 tech or a 3-4, more of an end, not one of the nose guys necessarily in a 3-4 set. But
Agreed.
He's got that versatility. So he'd be a really good fit there.
Yeah, I agree. I think he can play out as wide as a 5. I would not want him out there though. I think a nice little 3-tech. Maybe you can slide him in, but you don't necessarily want him to be your 1 or a 0 technique because he can actually generate a pretty decent little pass rush. So that's where I'm at on that.
Yep. All right. Who else you got?
So the next guy I got is another guy, later round guy, but Gabe Hall out of Baylor. Really good motor, man. He's always around the fucking play, but this guy is not going to give you that pass rush element that you're really looking for. He can win a pass rush rep, but it's because his pressure never fucking stops. This kid's motor is go all the way at all times. Another guy had really good showing at Senior Bowl, probably another day 2 prospect. But he will eat up some space for you. I believe he'll let your linebackers play a little bit more free. I think he could probably be a little heavier. I'd like to see him get to that 3 bills, maybe 305, because he is a little lean. But this is a kid I'd like day 2, maybe early day 3, that is going to be a solid rotational piece. Because there's not a ton of dudes that jump off the board to me at the D tackle spot. At least not until I talk about my next guy. But Gabe is somebody that you can get in, fill in with a very, very nice rotational piece. Yeah,
Gabe Hall, he's 6'6", 287. I like him, but I actually am more day 3 guy. I could see him being a 5th, 6th rounder because I didn't have anything that just super jumped out the tape to me. He's okay against the pass, okay against the run. He, looked decent at some of these bowls. But more of a developmental guy, a rotational guy. I wouldn't expect to see him starting in the first couple years, but a couple years in, if he develops correct, he could end up being at least a rotational guy or a good backup in the
league.
All right. And then you alluded to some interior guys that you like a little bit more.
My favorite guy, and I brought this name up as soon as I saw what happened during Senior Bowl week. Like I was talking about, dude, T'Vondre Sweat is a fucking man. The first line I have in my write-up, I will read verbatim for you. Dear Lord, I didn't know refrigerators could do that. He is so goddamn big. Fucking 6'4", 362, and he will fuck you up. He will sit you.
That number, by the way, is a lie.
Is it lighter or is it heavier?
He's heavier. So he showed up to the Senior Bowl, and there are clips out there of him at the Senior Bowl just demolishing people. The guy is a mammoth. Like I said, Texas has him listed at 6'4", 362. At the Senior Bowl, players can elect to weigh in, not weigh in. He did not weigh in. And that is usually a sign that the player is over that.
375 maybe?
When they're that high listed already, teams will start to negatively grade a guy based off of his weight if he's higher than their thresholds. And that means that whoever he's working with is telling him, you're higher than their thresholds. Don't let them weigh you. All right. So from the time of the Senior Bowl to the combine, he's probably dropping weight. So you're going to see him closer to this 360 something, 355 number.
I bet you he comes in at the combine 357-ish, probably trying to get down a little bit.
Right, because he's not having to be at that playing weight. He's trying to be a little bit faster for the 40. He's trying to just focus on the bench reps, things like that, and get that weight down for those measurable numbers. But when it comes to his actual playing weight, he is probably closer to 370. The dude is big. He is easily the biggest space eater nose tackle type in this draft.
Yeah.
I have him kind of my number 2, number 3 defensive tackle in this draft, depending on what you need. Like if you need a nose tackle, it moves him up a little bit higher on your board to possibly that
if you are looking for a 3 technique, a penetrator, this is not your fucking guy. If you run a 3-4 though, and you need a 1 or a nose, there's not a better D tackle in this draft than him. Like he is impossible to block one-on-one in the run game. It takes at least 2 people to dig him out of a fucking hole. You have to run laterally. You have to outrun him. You cannot run a power game at him. There are clips and reps from the Senior Bowl where he's taking on a double team and he wins a yard. He's so fucking big and so fucking strong. However, if you get him stretched out, these outside zone runs, that's where you can kind of take advantage of him a little bit because he's not going to be uber quick. Good first step, but if you actually have to make him get lateral, you can beat him there. But if you want a space eater, a 0 or a 1 technique, this dude can be truly dominant. So for me, he's got to go to a 3-4 team who is just looking to have a guy eat up multiple blockers and let their linebackers go fucking nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, his pass rush grade, while he didn't get home a lot, I think in college he only got 7 sacks. No, he only got 2 sacks, 7 quarterback hits in college. He is that space eater. He takes a minimum of 2 guys to block him, and he is able to get that interior pressure. That's why his pass rushing grades are actually pretty good, is because he is able to deliver the interior pass rush pressure. He's just not going to get home because of that size and the amount of blockers that are on him typically. Yeah. I love him as a prospect. He, to me, is a discount version of a guy that we saw come out 2 years ago in Jordan Davis, who's now with the Philadelphia Eagles, except for he's bigger. Jordan Davis isn't down there to be a 3-down defensive lineman. He's first down, second down type thing, space eater. That's what you're getting from T'Vondre Sweat. Like, and he is easily there's, like 1 or 2 other guys later on in this draft that are those true big nose tackle guys, and you don't see a ton of them coming out. He is the one, and that's his grades amongst people and where he's expected to be drafted are all over the place. To me, he's a first round pick. He's a fringe first rounder. He will absolutely be gone in the second round. At worst, because some teams are going to have him rated a lot higher because of the role that he plays in their defense. He's a guy that I would absolutely love to see on my team. Like he's one of my favorite guys in this draft from the interior.
If for some reason that we say Dalvin Tomlinson becomes a cap casualty, this is a guy that I wouldn't mind trading up into the first round to go get.
Yeah.
Because very similar player can fucking be a big goddamn space eater. I love T'Vondre, dude.
Mm-hmm. Me too. You got any other guys for the interior defensive line that you want to go before I hit some?
Not on the interior. I wanted to get a little bit of a spread. A couple guys. I think Sweat should go in the first. Then we got day 2, day 3. So I got a couple guys there. I want to hear guys that you really like on that interior D line.
Okay. So my number 1 rated guy in this class is Sweat's running partner there at Texas, Byron Murphy II. The guy is 6'1", 308 is what he's listed at as a junior. A little bit short arms. Those are the knocks on him. That's about it. He is a mauler. He is a penetrator. 6 sacks this last year, 3 hits, 36 hurries. The guy is a true awesome 3 tech. But he can, play in that 3-4 lineup in the middle as well and still be that space eater. He's not as big as you would like to be, but he plays above his size. I love Byron Murphy, the second, not Byron Murphy Jr., because that's the cornerback for the Vikings. It would just be hilarious if they were on the same team together. I also like, and this guy was rated higher than Byron Murphy was for a long time, Johnny Newton out of Illinois. He is also kind of that true 3-tech penetrator, 6'2", 295. Good against the run, but really good against the pass. 8 sacks, 7 hits, 28 pressures. There for the Fighting Illini. Another guy, Chris Jenkins. I have him, like I said, Tavondre Sett's kind of my number 2, number 3. Chris Jenkins, he's my 5th rated guy out of this group, 6'3", 305 from Michigan. Okay as a pass rusher, really good as a run defender. And then Brandon Dorless out of Oregon. I do see him as a little bit more of the 3-tech that can push out to be a end in a 3-4 system, 6'3" at 290. He looked pretty darn good at the Senior Bowl as well. 4 sacks this year, 7 hits, 35 hurries. He is not the greatest against the run, but in Oregon, they had their linemen kind of not filling up space to let the linebackers free as much. They were using those linemen to kind of get the pressure. So there's different ways to go about, getting the pressure or having free guys to go after.
I didn't watch a ton of Oregon football, but I believe Oregon still runs like quite a bit of like 3-3 style defenses every once in a while. So
yeah, for sure. Now some later guys that you can see 3rd, 4th round. A fun name, Ruka Rororo. Ruka Rororo out of Clemson, 6'4", 295, big dude. I like him as a 3-tech, or potentially as one of those guys that can flex out as an end in a 3-4, but it looks like he's got space on his frame. He's only 22 years old. He's got space on his frame to add more, and that could start to get him in the conversation as a little bit more of a nose or not a nose tackle, but an interior guy on a 3-4. And then where are we at? Another guy that sadly didn't get an invite to the combine, but he was at the Senior Bowl, Christian Boyd out of UNI. That's my other guy, or number 2 for me, as like true nose tackle type of guy. 6'4", 317 at UNI, very productive there. 3 sacks, 9 hits, 28 hurries. He is playing against lower competition, so that's the question there. Is that why he was getting as much pressure as a pass rusher as he was doing? But his pass rush grades for being a nose tackle type of guy, real good. Run defense, solid, but the pass rush grades were really good. I think that he'll be a good 3-tech out there in the NFL. And my 3rd ranked nose tackle, Mason Smith, LSU, 6'6", 315. He's the next biggest space eater, and that 315 is a bit of a light number 2. He's probably closer to 320, 330 at his playing weight. And one last name to kind of throw out there, Jordan Jefferson out of LSU, 6'4", 317. Also kind of that big mauler in the middle. If he had come out last year, he was being talked about as being a 1st-round pick. And when the process started this year at the beginning of, looking at draft prospects, he was still kind of that fringe 1st, 2nd-round pick and did not have a good year. 3 sacks, but his pass rush grade, 62, run defense grade was okay. Like, he just had a down year, and he was injured for a good part of the year as well. So this is a guy that Jordan Jefferson, you're probably going to see go in like the 5th or 6th round, that if you believe that the injury is kind of what held him back and that he just had a down year, you could kind of begin to steal as either a starter here in the next couple of years, or someone who is going to be at least be a high-end rotational guy. I think that there's a lot of value in him later on in the draft, that you actually could find kind of one of those sleepers or gems, if you will.
All right.
And then I was going to wait for this, and I don't know if you have them on your edge defenders. You're kind of
send it,
guys.
Let's find out.
But this is a guy that I don't feel is a true edge guy, and unless he is in a 4-3. And then I can see hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end. But to me, this guy is like, it's his measurables and everything seem to be very similar to JJ Watt.
Okay.
Darius Robinson out of
I
Missouri.
have him as an edge.
Yeah. So for me, he is like prototypical 3-4 end with flexibility on pass downs to go interior. I don't like him without his hand in the dirt, but I love this guy. And he has made a big jump. He was a 3rd round type of guy and has slowly been working up the boards and then had himself a really good Senior Bowl. And now he's fringe 1st round, definitely 2nd round. Darius Robinson he's 6'5", 296, 83 pass rush grade, good against the run, 81 run grade. But like at his age, he is still developing, and the measurables and kind of traits that we saw were JJ Wattish to me. I don't want to call a player the next JJ Watt or anything like that, but I think that 3-4 years down the line, people are going to be asking why he wasn't like a top 15 pick potentially.
So I have a write-up here on Darius. Now, do you have any other D tackles, guys, that you want to talk about? Because
I'm good with those interior guys.
Oh, well, then let me give you what I got on Darius Robinson out of Missouri.
Okay.
Great fucking Senior Bowl. Like you talked about, he can play multiple positions along the line. Does a great job of converting speed to power. Multiple moves to work off of. Like he does everything you want. He will win with speed and finesse on the inside against guards. He can fucking win and convert speed to power on the outside. Like you can play this kid anywhere from a 3 technique all the way out to a 9 tech. He is good everywhere in between. Athletic fucking freak. His inside move, if he sets you up outside and then breaks inside of you, you're done. Not one fucking person at the Senior Bowl could stop that move. The only knock I have on Darius is that because he's so goddamn tall, every once in a while he'll get outside of his frame or he'll stand a little too tall. But go turn on the Missouri versus fucking LSU game, and you're going to see Darius Robinson all over the field creating so many problems for your number 1 quarterback probably right now, right? And Jaden Daniels? Close. The top 3 quarterback for you, right?
Yeah. It's murky water up there at the top.
Yeah. But he created so many fucking problems. Jaden Daniels could not escape. Like that tape alone should get Darius fucking looked at as a, late first, high second. And then all the things that he put on tape at the Senior Bowl, just absolute fucking stud. I love this kid.
Yeah, that's to me, he doesn't have fantastic bend that you normally want to see from some of the edge rushers. And I don't think he's going to test overall like an insane athlete. I think he's going to test well, but not like an insane athlete at the combine. But
I think he's going to surprise people with his explosive abilities.
The jumping are just awesome.
Yeah. Well, and he's so fucking tall. What was it? 6'5"? I think this kid is
6'5", in the 290s. And I think that, if he ends up going to a 4-3 team, he might be able to lean up a little bit to fit the end better. But to me, like I salivate at the thought of getting him on the defensive line anywhere because he is a 3-down guy because of that positional flexibility where, he can play wherever.
All right. So we're both high on the young man. So that's good.
Yep. And even that being said, that's because I rank him as a defensive lineman rather than an edge guy more so.
See, I have him as an edge. I like seeing him come off the edge.
Mm-hmm. I have him like around my 4 or 5 as a mix of that edge to defensive line.
Now he's not my best edge guy. I got my best edge guy. We'll talk about here in a second. But I got another dude, and somebody we're gonna catch some strays here. So I'm gonna send some strays. We talked about this a little bit before. Dallas Turner, right? Like projects as like this athletic freak, but I don't know that I like him that much. And I don't necessarily like his value and where he's being mocked in a lot of these drafts. Really, really high first round pick, probably the first edge rusher off the board. I don't see him as that
I don't
at all.
think
He's close. He's in that conversation for sure.
Yeah, he's viewed as either the number 1 or 2 defensive end / edge rush in this class, and I'm not in agreement with it personally. But
agreed. But so there's a guy that I like that probably just about as much as Turner. I think he gives you the same kind of abilities. The difference is that Turner's 6'4", but Muhammad Kamara out of Colorado State looks and plays very similar, but Kamara's only 6'1". He's just smaller. That's honestly, in my opinion, really one of the only differences. Like, because Kamara, for me, super intriguing because he doesn't fit every team's profile. I think you have to play this kid as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I don't think that you can play him as a D end. He's too little in the NFL.
Yeah.
But as a 3-4 outside linebacker, he can look really fucking good. He's played down linebacker, but there's also plenty of coverage drops on tape. So he's shown that he can do it. Really good athleticism, but he's undersized. Really good pure pass rusher. Like, this kid kind of hopped off the screen early in the year when Colorado was playing Colorado State. Colorado could not fucking block Kamara. He was causing so many problems. Now, Colorado State's offensive line was pretty dog shit, but like, he was a problem the entire game. I love the way this kid will press the arc on an outside rush and have the ability to bend back in underneath. Like, he generates most of his pressures that way is by getting that real high arc, waiting for that extra, that last set by the tackle, and then cuts underneath. So I like Kamara late round, like 4th round, that you can get a really good player instead of spending super high draft capital with a top 20 pick in a Turner.
yeah, I'm kind of the same way with Kamara, being that he is so short. He's got to play that outside of tackle, outside linebacker, edge rusher. And to me, like, he's okay against the run and definitely could develop there more, but he is a pure pass rusher more than anything. He's a 4th round grade that could definitely elevate up to the 3rd round if a team is looking at those traits. But as just a pure pass rusher, he's fantastic. 14 sacks this last year, 38 pressures. The guy is, like I told you earlier, I feel like he's got a lot of Yannick Ngakoue in him, like the good stuff from Yannick. I don't know that he'll be out there every single down. And to an extent, I see a little bit of Zadarius Smith now, where Zadarius Smith is a little bit more of a pass rusher and not necessarily a liability in the run, but not great against the run. But like, I like his pass rush capability a lot from Muhammad Kamara. And then jumping back to that previous player that you were talking about there in Dallas Turner, he's 6'4", 242, and the guy is an athletic freak. His pass rush grade is okay. Like, it's pretty damn good. Run defense, not so good. Like, to me, like, you're getting a worse run defender in Dallas Turner than you are from Kamara, but you are getting a little bit more size out of him. You could play Dallas Turner as a 4-3 end, but still, to me, like, I want a little
too
bit
lean,
bigger.
man. He's too lean to play that spot, I think.
To me, he's almost like a Will Anderson that came out this year, but he does not have the technique. He hasn't been coached up enough yet. Dallas Turner is 21 years old, so he still has plenty of time to develop. But when you're talking about potentially the top edge rusher off the board in this draft, like, to me, there's too much development to him that needs to happen, and that's too much of a question of if you can get him to fully develop. Like, I still have Dallas Turner as a late 1st to 2nd round pick, which is way lower than I think a lot of people have him. But right now, it feels like he's just has pure athleticism, is able to win off that athleticism, but he doesn't even know how to use the athleticism correctly and doesn't have the technique for it personally. In my
I'm gonna say a name that is gonna rile up some Browns fans, probably piss off some Alabama fans. Barkevius Mingo. That's who he reminds me of. Super fucking athlete who's too lean to play that DN position, will get washed in the run game, but can be a really productive pass rusher in situational roles. That's what he reminds me of. Kamara is a guy that I could take in round 4 that I believe will give me similar production.
Alrighty. Who else you got there along the edge?
So this is my favorite guy on the edge. In my opinion, the best pass rusher in this class is Chop Robinson. Dude, Chop Robinson is a fucking stud. He can play the 4-3 end. He's athletic enough to go out and play a 3-4 outside linebacker. Dominates with his initial quickness. That first step is fucking dangerous. Does a great job of pressing the outside shoulder. Needs to improve in the run game. Will play with decent leverage, but definitely needs help with setting the edge. Does a good job fighting through chips. Motor that doesn't stop. Like, I think this kid is going to test insane at the combine. This is the guy that's going to fly up the draft board. And honestly, I think he should. He has been so goddamn good. I love Chop Robinson. I saw your face, though. You might have a dissenting opinion here.
No, like it is. There are people here and there that have him listed as their top edge rusher in this class. I like him as like my top 3-4, and that's depending on where I put Darius Robinson, because I like Darius Robinson a little bit more than Chop, but they're two different players, like two different positions to me. So if I'm just speaking purely on edge rusher, I have him as probably as my number 2 or 3 guy. I like him a lot too. And that's a guy, again, who his college production was kind of dog shit. Yeah. Like, but at Penn State, he wasn't asked to be doing these things. Like, Daniil Hunter, college production was dog shit, and he's one of the better defensive ends in the league right now.
That's actually my comp for Chop. I was going to say. He looks like fucking Daniil Hunter, dude.
He's a little muscle mommy, fucking 6'3", 250, but he had 3 sacks this year, and so you're like, oh, this guy isn't super productive. It's just the system that he was in. I don't think he was there to be super productive. He is good against the run, very good pass rusher, super athletic. It's kind of like if you were wanting to compare him to the last guy that we were talking about in Dallas Turner, you have a guy who is an athletic freak that doesn't understand his athleticism, is winning off of it, but doesn't know how to, versus Chop Robinson, who has the athleticism, is an athletic freak, and understands how to use it, and has some technical capability. And he's 21 years old, just like
that's the big thing.
And understand, like, he still has room to grow, but he's already got a way more sound understanding of the game and how to use his capabilities and techniques than a Dallas Turner, which is why I've got Chop rated above him. He's not my top guy, but he is up there, definitely first round consideration. But I see him as a guy that could potentially fall late first, early second still.
If he falls into the second round, somebody's getting a fucking steal, and it better be the Browns.
And this is, look,
we need a dude opposite of Myles fucking Garrett.
This is a pretty good edge rush class. I've brought this up before, where you're able to find some edge rushers in rounds 1, 2, 3, maybe even into the 4th if some of these guys were to fall a little bit, that Kamara, they're going to be rotational guys that can work with your team, you know, from the get-go. All right, who else you got on your edge rush board here?
That was my last dude, man. Because once I started watching Chop, I was like, I don't want to watch anybody else. He doesn't get as many sacks as you'd like, sure. But turn on a game. Turn on the fucking Ohio State. Turn on the Michigan game. Watch him absolutely decimate whatever Rutgers was trying to fucking do.
What I saw,
so disruptive, dude.
What he was doing is he was the one creating pressure on a quarterback. The quarterback would then end up rolling into someone else.
Yes.
And that guy would get the sack.
Yes.
So
he is constantly disruptive.
He is creating sacks for sure, even if he's not the one getting them. So my kind of number 1, number 2 situation here, that honestly, this is one of those situations where I think the combine is actually going to be telling for me. and it's going to be based on the medicals. So the guy that I really want to be my number one is Laiatu Latu.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like Laiatu Latu.
I like him, but I have some questions.
So he's got short arms. He's 6'5", 265, but he's got short arms. But the guy was uber productive in college. Now, the big question with Laiatu Latu is that he played up at Washington and had to medically retire. The team medically retired him due to a neck injury.
Yep.
He ended up getting some other opinions like a year or so later after rehabbing, and the Washington staff still said, no, you can't play football anymore. But then all these other outside specialists were like, oh yeah, you can play. And UCLA cleared him, so he ends up going to UCLA again. Uber productive. He was off 2021, came back 22 and 23, and was super productive. This last year, 15 sacks, 11 hits, 36 hurries, pass rush grade of 94.3, and run defensive grade of 82. I think he's an all-around defensive end. What really intrigues me, and that the stuff that was coming out of the Senior Bowl about him was like, normally you get these pass rushers that will have like one or two moves in their bag, and that'll get them like looked at as like, hey, this guy's got some moves, he's good to go. He has 8. He has 8 truly defined pass rush moves that the defensive line coaches were like, what the fuck? How does he already have this? You have NFL players who are Hall of Famers who don't have this good of an understanding of skill sets on how to utilize the rips and things like that. Like if one of those moves fails, you see him immediately transition into something else in the practices, in the practice film. Like, I think that he is fantastic. I love him as the number one edge rusher in this group. The question is the medical. Our team's going to be down on him because of that medical or not. If that neck is healed, we're golden, baby. Daniil Hunter had a neck issue that fucked him up a couple years ago, and he didn't play very much. But now he's back to being his old self, and I'm hoping that's what's happening with Laiatu Latu, is that he had that neck injury, rehabbed, got better, second opinions. Now he's good to go again. We'll see what the NFL medical doctors think about him.
Do you have him as a 4-3, or do you see him as a 3-4? Because in my opinion, I don't know if he puts his hand in the dirt. I don't know if he can, man. That's where I have questions. Because is he big enough to hold up against the run? Because he has struggled against the run at times.
At Washington, he did stand up. At UCLA, he was hand in the dirt more often than not. So I think that he can do both. The size to me is perfect for either. So I think that he fits with either of those. And against the run, overall run grade was an 82 according to PFF. I thought he was great against the run. But I didn't think it was a liability. Whereas you look at guys like Dallas Turner, he was a liability.
Okay, so yeah, he's better than Dallas Turner in the run game, but Dallas Turner is a pure pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. But you're a lot of times from these defensive ends, they are edge rushers. They are meant to, like, their specialty is going to be leaning more towards the pass. But I don't think that you have to think about him ever coming off the field. Like, I don't think that he ever is a guy that's like lacking in his run support personally. So he's the guy that I want to be my number one edge rusher in this draft. But until those medicals are kind of figured out, the safer play is Jared Verse from Florida State. Prototypical size 6'4", 260.
I didn't want to bring up the dude that, like, Jared Verse is he's going in the first round.
Yeah, that's to me, like, he'll be the first edge rusher off the board probably.
I think that you are probably right, but I don't think he should be. I think Chop will work his way into that conversation after.
Chop's definitely more exciting. He's definitely more exciting. The thing with Jared Verse is that he started off this last year really slow and came on more towards the end of the year, especially like after the Jordan Travis injury. Like, all of a sudden, like, he was really popping off. Which, offensive side of the ball versus defensive side of the ball, what's going on there? But it feels like he almost like picked things up as the year went along, which is kind of nice to see. 11 sacks, 36 pressures. He's okay against the run. Again, I think he's better than Dallas Turner, which is weird that we're using that as a litmus line. But
I know it's tough, and we're not trying to throw shots at Dallas Turner. We like guys more than we like him.
Yeah. Like I said, at the end of the day, Dallas Turner is probably going to still end up being a first-round pick. To me, he's more of a late first or some guy that could fall into the second, be a little bit of a surprise, but he'll probably be a first-round pick. But
I don't typically take shots at defensive guys. I reserve those for my quarterback evaluations where I take shots at those guys.
But to me, Jared Verse, he's the safest defensive end that will end up being starter quality for a long time. Is he ever going to? His ceiling isn't super high to me.
His ceiling is 10 sacks a year.
The stuff
that's his ceiling, in my opinion. He's 10 sacks a year, but I don't think that he comes out and lights the world on fire right away.
Right. I prefer to see him in a 4-3, but he can play some 3-4 outside linebacker edge if you want. But to me, he is best suited as a 4-3. And honestly, the comps that, and I guess I have to agree with him to an extent, that I'm seeing all over the place is Ryan Kerrigan. Which Ryan Kerrigan was milquetoast. He was a good defensive end, solid, but never special.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what you're going to get from Jared Verse. I think like could he be better? Yes, but the ceiling still seems to be, set and not super, super high.
But I don't think the floor is that low either. Like, right. I don't think that we're looking at like that. This is a safe pick. This is a guy you plug in. He plays. He does his job. He's not going to wow anybody. He's not going to probably win a defensive rookie of the year, but it's a dude that you could draft and be like, okay, I feel very comfortable with him generating some pressure. Does a decent job setting the edge. But when you're thinking, man, first round pass rusher, he doesn't excite me like a Chop does.
Mm-hmm. And this is a guy that I've done a decent amount of work on because Jared Verse gets mocked to the Vikings quite a bit. The Vikings spot is one of the first spots that gets looked at as, where the first defender could go off the board. That and the Falcons, depending on what they end up doing with their quarterback situation, or if they decide to go wide receiver there with
they're getting Justin Fields, dog. They're fucking trading for Justin Fields. I feel so confident about that right now.
Yeah. The odds right now, the bookies out there have the highest odds of him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I don't see it. The Steelers are not going to give up that much draft capital. That's not what that organization does. They're not giving up that. I would be willing to bet.
Well, I like the fit in Pittsburgh, but I like the fit down in Atlanta as well.
I don't like the fit in Pittsburgh because I believe it makes Pittsburgh a way better team because he's far better than every quarterback that he's got. It's great for them. Sure. It would be great for the Steelers, but fuck that.
And now you've got your new offensive coordinator up there in Arthur Smith, who is a run first type of guy. Well, hey, now you got a running quarterback. He made Ryan Tannehill look really good for a couple years because Ryan Tannehill doesn't have an amazing arm, but he's more mobile. Well, now you got a guy that's even more mobile and a better runner and maybe has an ascending arm talent to an extent.
Go to Atlanta where you have weapons out the ass. The weapons in Pittsburgh are not as good as the weapons in Atlanta. Yeah, I feel very confident when I say that.
All right, actually, we're gonna break here for a sec. This is the Kirk Cousins corner right now, okay? Because when we're talking about all these teams that need quarterbacks, right? I as a Vikings fan have to understand that the potential for him to come back is technically there, but a big part of that is who else is out there that needs a quarterback that would be willing to go get Kirk and pay Kirk kind of what he's looking for. You've got the Steelers, you've got the Falcons. To an extent, I suppose you have the Patriots. I've heard the Broncos thrown around there a little bit, Oakland, but the big ones are Minnesota, Oakland, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh. Atlanta seems like the best fit out of that group for him next to the Vikings, but I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So in my opinion, Kirk's going to the Patriots. There it is. Yeah, Kirk's going to the Patriots. They need that vanilla ass white quarterback up there because that's what they always do.
But if you're taking a quarterback as high as they could take him,
I don't know if they are. They have so
question.
Many fucking needs, and are they willing to hitch their wagon first draft to a brand new fucking rookie quarterback? That is a tough sell for a brand new GM and head coach.
Yeah.
You could buy yourself an extra year if you wait a fucking year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. We'll see. Look, if Belichick was still up there, Kirk would already be there. Like he would already moved his stuff there and all that. And then Joe Rockstar is not going to like this. The dark horse that I've heard little rumors of is
49ers. Yeah, I've heard the same rumors, man. I don't think there's any way that happens.
Kyle Shanahan
loves
the biggest boner for Kirk.
Yeah.
Like they've had plans in place to trade for Kirk, and Kirk would waive the no trade clause because he loves Shanahan as well. There's been times like if the Brock Purdy thing didn't happen or didn't work out, apparently they were going to be hyper aggressive to get Kirk as well.
Makes sense.
Like Kyle Shanahan has in press conferences talked about his love for Kirk and how he wished that he could have Kirk.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense why you do that with Brock Purdy, except for if you think that you're, made it to the Super Bowl and you could get an elevated play somehow from Kirk Cousins, then I guess you go ahead and do it. Like
how many years is Kirk playing for?
They haven't gone full Rams. Kirk, he wants 3 years, I believe.
You can't do it. He can't go to San Francisco then because you only got Brock for 2 more years.
Well, this is the thing is I think that for that situation, Kirk might move a little bit on his asks. He might be willing to do a 2-year deal, not fully guaranteed, at $35 a year. And they got to do some shuffling with money to make that happen. But that has been out there. That has been floated around. And look, personally, I think the 49ers should invest in Brock, continue with Brock. He's cheap right now. And he got you to the fucking Super Bowl. Like, you can win with that situation. Is Kirk a better quarterback? Potentially. We don't know what he's going to be now as he's getting older and with this Achilles. But if you have Kirk Cousins from this year before the injury versus Brock Purdy, yes, technically is a better quarterback. But long-term success, Brock Purdy's the way to go. But if they bring Kirk in, you're wasting the rest of Brock Purdy's rookie quarterback contract.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably trade Brock for a first.
Do you think somebody would give up a first for Brock right now? I don't think we can get that high.
Because of the contract and
Commanders?
Because of the level of play, I think you could get away with trading him for a first. I don't know if it would be the Commanders, and I don't know who a good landing spot would be. My Vikings, maybe. But
fuck that. That's not a move. I think you guys want.
I don't know that.
Really though,
I don't want to give up a first for him. I'd give up.
That's too much, dude.
But I would not looking at the picks. I would like to have Brock on my team.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, sure. I'd like to have Brock on my team too if I didn't have to worry about the fucking picks.
Yeah. But that is the real dark horse rumor that's kind of been floated around, and it was aggregated by at least one known, well-reputed 49ers beat writer that said, don't be surprised when the 49ers go out there and make a play for Kirk because they have teeter-tottered on should we go full Rams, and they might just do it.
I mean, if it gives you a Super Bowl, I mean, it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about the quarterback and the quarterback movement, I'm almost certain that the Falcons are going to get Justin Fields. He's not going to go to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's not going to give up any draft picks to go get a guy.
I like
what they're going to do. Well. They're going to wait until Russell Wilson is cut by the fucking Broncos, and the Steelers are going to sign Russell Wilson.
Okay.
That's what I foresee happening. And that is a great fit, in my opinion, and I hate it. Because what does Russell Wilson need? He needs a solid defense and an offense predicated on a run game to work off a play action. What the fuck should the Steelers be doing with that offense? Exactly that with their double-headed running back. Stop putting the onus on the fucking quarterbacks who suck dick. Bring in Russell Wilson and let that offense actually go. I don't like this because I think it makes the Steelers better, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. New sandwich deal with Subway.
No sandwich deal with Subway.
Yep. Me personally, I think Fields, he would be good in Pittsburgh, and I'm not throwing that out, but dream scenario, I guess, to appease you here, I would like to see Kirk go to Atlanta and Fields go to Oakland. It's not Oakland.
That's fine with me.
The Vegas Raiders, excuse me. Wow, throwback.
Yeah, The Vegas Raiders would make sense for Justin Fields, I think.
Well, we know
Devontae, giving him a weapon like Devontae with a massive catch radius.
We know that they want a mobile quarterback. Like, there's heavy rumors about them wanting to trade it for Jaden Daniels because of the connection at ASU. But we'll see. I don't know. And I think the Raiders are well within their capability to give up a second and maybe some change in order to go and get Justin Fields because they want to move up in the draft, but the amount that they're going to have to give to move from their position to get anywhere up close enough to get a Jaden Daniels, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
They're not doing it, in my opinion, because they have to trade down. right? But to trade down, they're giving up their quarter. Like it, yeah. The Bears situation is going to be super fucking weird. The quarterback market is going to be also intense this year because we could say until we're blue in the face that, oh, we don't know what's happening. But there are certain things that right now look like they're almost certain. Justin Fields will not be a Bear. Fucking Russell Wilson will not be a Bronco. Like those are almost, they feel like they are written in stone. That is happening. Much to the chagrin of Caleb Williams, who's going to fucking Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Now to wrap up the Kirk Cousins corner, which I'll be happy when that's over with.
When it's all over.
I have a fear that with the money that he wants, he's going to hit the open market and no one's going to be able to meet it.
Yep.
And then the Vikings are still going to probably offer him something, but it's going to be
crawling back for a lesser deal.
I think it'll be well below what he wants, especially in guarantees and stuff like that. It'll probably be something closer to like 2 years, 75 with only half guaranteed or something like that. Which I still don't want to do, but that's one of those situations where it's less than Kirk wants, more than the Vikings want to give up, but it's going to bring him back on. We can get out of that deal next year, and then they can try to finagle some of that money future void years with how the cap's going up. That doesn't worry me too much. But I feel like if it all comes down to like, hey, he's being offered the same contract from Atlanta, New England, everyone, and the Vikings, he's going to stay in Minnesota because his family's already there. He likes being with the Vikings. The coach likes him. Justin Jefferson likes him. The team likes him. Like, it's a good situation for him that he can kind of finish out his career in. It's just not going to be the last payday that he really wants. That's my fear, is that he's going to hit the open market. He's not going to see what he likes, and then he'll end up going back to the Vikings. In which case, that's when we have to start looking at developmental quarterback J.J. McCarthy. But anyways, that's the end of the Kirk Cousins corner. Back over to these defensive ends. So we just got
so who else you got on the defensive line or defensive ends?
Overrated Chris Braswell. Not a big fan of him, actually. I think he should be a 3rd round pick, but he's being mocked high 2nd. I don't like him too much. Adisa Isaac, also from Penn State, playing alongside Chop Robinson. I like Adisa Isaac.
I don't, dude.
I think that he is a weaker version and a undisciplined version of Chop Robinson, and my hope would be that you could develop him. But he's a guy that should be a late 2nd, 3rd round pick.
He loses like his feet so fucking much, dude. His balance is bad,
and that's why I have him as a more of a developmental guy, and that's more into the 3rd. You have Jonah Ellis, the son of former defensive end Luther Ellis. He, to me, has some traits I like, but he's definitely developmental. Like, he's going to take a little bit. Mostly a pass rusher and a little bit undersized for what I would want. So he's got to be like a 3-4 outside linebacker. Not great against the run, good against the pass, but he was playing there at Utah. He's so. But going off of the traits of his father and the fact that he's not even 21 yet, you got a lot of room to develop there, and he can put more weight on his frame. He's just not going to get any taller than 6'2", so that kind of sucks. Braylon Trice out of Washington. He is a unspectacular defensive end. I've seen watching some of that Washington tape where he will have explosive moments and then he'll just kind of disappear for a while. But not necessarily disappear and be a liability, be bad. So he's another one of those guys that I think has a high floor, low ceiling. He's been talked about as a late 1st round pick, but I definitely see him as a 2nd round guy. I don't see him leaving out of the 2nd round. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Murphy brothers, the twins out of UCLA. Only one of them got an invite to the combine. Gabe Murphy in some places ranked a lot higher than his brother. But to me, they are really similar. So, and not just because they're twins, they're both around 6'3", 260-ish. So we'll see what happens with them. Now, some late defensive ends that I'm a fan of. Marshawn Nealand out of Western Michigan. He is 6'3", 275, a little bit shorter than you'd want, but he is an all-around good player, and he really showed up well at the Senior Bowl. playing at Western Michigan, you're not playing against good competition. I think that he's a developmental guy, but I could see him as a 3-4 outside linebacker that in a couple years is a starter or a rotational guy. Definitely high motor. Javon Solomon, big fan of as a pass rusher out of Troy. That's the biggest problem with him, is that he played against dog shit competition. But Javon Solomon, 6'2", 245. He is a 3-4 outside linebacker, but I really like him. He's probably going to be like a 4th round pick that could get elevated up into the 3rd sneakily. And I really like him a lot. You already talked about Muhammad Kamara. Let's see here. Later in the draft, Xavier Thomas, 6'2", 255. He is a decent edge rusher, but I kind of mock him to being a rotational guy, set piece, nothing super special. But
you got a couple more guys that you want to talk about? I have got to fucking piss. I'm gonna piss my goddamn pants.
I really don't like. Other than that, there's no one else that's really jumps off the tape for me. As
I was gonna ask you about how you feel about Jalen Harrell.
Yeah,
I know that he's supposed to be an athletic freak, right? Decently aged, decent numbers, but is this a guy that is a product of playing in a really fucking good defense?
I mean, that Michigan defense was fantastic, but again, he's unspectacular to me. Like he's 6'4", 240-ish, and he's nothing special as a pass rusher. So like he's an okay run defender, nothing special as a pass rusher. So to me, like he's another rotational guy, mid 4th round, 5th round type guy.
Okay. All right. Brother, do you got any other guys you want to hit, or do you want to wrap this thing up? Because if we don't, if you got anything else you want to go over, go ahead and say it, because I'm going to piss my pants if I'm not wrapping this up.
No, we can wrap it up. The 3 names that I would say is you should watch for the 3rd through the 5th round that are sleepers that could potentially be good starters in the NFL is Marshawn Nealon, Javon Solomon, and then Muhammad Kamara. Those are names that you definitely could see here in the future that are going to be like, why weren't they drafted higher?
All right. And I love me some Muhammad Kamara, but with that, let's get the fuck out of here because I got to pee so bad.
All right.
But guys, this is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That's Evo. And this is our breakdown of edge and D-line, guys. Next week, we will be back for linebackers and defensive backs. We're going to hit all of that in one go, and then we'll get ready to roll into offensive guys. We'll see the combine. We'll have all of those broken down for you, position by position. I promise you are not going to want to miss the quarterback breakdown because typically there are some things that are said when that happens. I love this time of year. Evo, brother, I appreciate you so much. Guys, if you want to interact with the show, go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that, every social platform, you're going to find us. Lots of content has been coming out, especially if you go check out the YouTube and the shorts. If you go check out the YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, share it with your friends. And yeah, we're going to get the fuck out of here. We will see you guys next week with more breakdowns. Evo, give one final word to the people before we get the fuck out of here.
Penis.
There we go. That's the word I expected. Guys, this is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. That's Evo. We appreciate you anytime you spend time with us. We'll see you next week, but we're getting the fuck out of here. See you.